In 1942, during World War II, a life raft carrying stranded sailors drifted for weeks in the middle of the ocean. Water everywhere they looked. Endless water all around them for miles. And yet, one by one, some of those men died of thirst. Not because there was no water, because the water surrounding them was the one thing they were forbidden to drink. Drinking straight seawater doesn't save you. It accelerates your death, pulling water out of your own cells faster than you can replace it. Now here's the question that made me make this video. If a human being can be completely surrounded by water and still die of thirst, what happens to a fish? A fish that never leaves the water, not even for a second, its entire life. Does it face the exact same trap, or something even stranger? Stick with me until the end, because the last part of this video is going to make you look at your own body's relationship with water completely differently. And everything I'm about to tell you is based on real physiology and real published research, not just an interesting guess. Here's the first thing almost everyone gets wrong about this question. We assume thirst is about access to water, being near it or not. But that's not actually what thirst is. Thirst is your body detecting that the balance of salt and fluid inside you has drifted off and sending you an urgent signal to fix it. So the real question was never, is a fish surrounded by water? The real question is, does a fish's body have to constantly fight to keep that internal balance in check? And if it does something inside that fish actually feel that fight? To answer that, we need to understand one process that quietly runs every fish's entire life. Scientists call it osmoregulation, and depending on which ocean or river a fish happens to be born in, this one process puts it in one of two completely opposite lifelong battles. Let's start with freshwater fish. A goldfish, a trout, a bass. Their blood and cells naturally hold more salt than the river or lake around them. And by simple physics, water always moves towards the saltier side, trying to even things out. That means river water is constantly, forcibly pushing its way into a freshwater fish's body through its gills and skin, whether the fish wants it or not. Here's the part that surprises people. A freshwater fish is basically being overhydrated every second of its life, against its will. So it never really needs to drink. Its problem is the opposite. Its kidneys work overtime producing huge amounts of watery urine, constantly flushing out water it never asked to receive in the first place. So if you were expecting freshwater fish to be the ones facing thirst, you'd have the whole thing backwards. Now here's where it gets genuinely strange. Saltwater fish live the exact opposite nightmare. The ocean around them is saltier than their own blood, so water is constantly being pulled out of their bodies through their skin into the sea. A saltwater fish is, quite literally, drying out every second of its life while fully submerged in water. To survive that, evolution gave them a solution that sounds almost unbelievable if you didn't already know it was true. Saltwater fish drink the ocean around them, constantly, in large amounts. Then, using specialized cells built into their gills, they pump the extra salt back out, keeping only the water they need. In other words, in the most literal, physical sense possible, saltwater fish live in a state that looks a lot like permanent thirst, a biological need for water that never fully switches off, satisfied over and over for their entire lives, without ever really ending. So we've established the mechanics, but here's the deeper question, the one science hasn't fully closed the book on. Does any of this feel like anything to the fish? Or is it just automatic biology, the same way your body regulates its own temperature without you consciously noticing a thing? In mammals, thirst isn't just plumbing. It's a conscious, motivating sensation, created in a specific part of the brain called the hypothalamus, which detects your blood concentration and generates an urge to go find water. Fish have a structure considered biologically similar to parts of that same region, and research into some fish species has identified nerve cells that respond specifically to shifts in salt concentration, essentially a built-in imbalance detector. That doesn't prove fish consciously crave water the way we do, but it does mean they have real physical hardware capable of sensing an imbalance and being driven to act on it, which is functionally very close to what thirst actually is at a biological level. And nature, as always, has exceptions that make this even weirder. Take salmon. They're born in freshwater, migrate out into the ocean as adults, then swim all the way back into freshwater just to reproduce. That means within days, their entire body has to completely flip which battle it's fighting, from constantly getting rid of water to constantly replacing it. Then there's the mud skipper, a fish that spends huge stretches of its life out of the water entirely on mudflats and mangrove roots. Its skin has to stay wet to survive, so it actively rolls in puddles and stores water in its own gill chambers. Watch that behavior closely, and it's about the closest thing you'll ever see to a fish visibly, urgently seeking out water because it needs it. And sharks and rays solve the whole problem in a completely different way. Instead of drinking or pumping out salt, many of them keep a compound called urea concentrated in their blood, raising their internal concentration to nearly match the ocean around them. They essentially cheat the entire system before it becomes a problem. So, can fish feel thirst? Here's the honest answer, and it depends entirely on how strictly you define the word. If thirst means a physical need to constantly acquire and manage water, then yes, many fish, especially saltwater species, live in a near permanent version of it their entire lives. If thirst means a conscious craving the way you and I experience it, science genuinely doesn't have a final answer yet. But fish appear to carry some of the exact biological hardware that could make that possible. Either way, one assumption just collapsed completely. The idea that a fish can't be thirsty because it's surrounded by water. Water access was never the real issue. Managing it was. The same brutal lesson those sailors on that life raft learned the hard way. And that brings us back to where we started. Those sailors didn't die because water wasn't around them. They died because their bodies couldn't safely use the water that was right there. A fish, in its own way, spends its entire life managing that exact same threat, every hour, every day, for its whole existence, without a single day off. Your body does the same balancing act right now, quietly in the background, and you only notice it the moment it tips too far. That's the very feeling of thirst hitting you. Next time you feel that urge and reach for a glass of water without thinking twice about it, remember, a fish never gets that simple option. For a fish, managing water isn't a quick fix. It's the full-time job of being alive. If this completely changed how you think about fish, and maybe even about your own body, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this reach more curious people. And tell me in the comments, which side of this shocked you more? Freshwater fish that never drink, or saltwater fish that never stop? Subscribe, because this channel is all about answering the strange questions nobody else bothers to ask. Not just biology, anything that makes you go, wait, really? See you in the next one.